Let's be honest, we've all been there. Fork in one hand, phone in the other, scrolling through an endless stream of TikToks, tweets, and whatever else the internet throws at us. Dinner with friends, more like dinner to friends, each of us lost in the digital void. It's become so normal, so ingrained in our daily routines that we hardly even question it. But maybe we should, because this little habit, this merging of mealtime and screen time, speaks volumes about our relationship with food, technology, and, let's be real, our own attention spans. We're not here to shame anyone for enjoying a side of YouTube with their spaghetti. This isn't about digital detoxing or becoming one with nature, though, no judgment if that's your thing. This is about understanding. Why has this become the norm? What's the psychology driving our need to be constantly entertained, even while engaging in something as fundamental as eating? And what are the implications for our health, our relationships, and our society as a whole? Let's rewind a bit, shall we? Back to a time before smartphones and Wi-Fi, back when the biggest distraction at the dinner table was probably, well, your siblings. Believe it or not, humans have been multitasking since, being human was a thing. We're talking early humans, foraging for food while keeping an eye out for predators. That's multitasking 1.0, folks. Fast forward a few millennia, and we've graduated to more complex tasks. Writing a grocery list while talking on the phone, attempting and failing to fold laundry during a conference call. You get the picture. And then came the digital age. The internet, smartphones, and the constant barrage of notifications. Suddenly, our multitasking abilities were put to the ultimate test. Let's talk about dopamine, baby. That glorious neurotransmitter that makes us feel all warm and fuzzy inside. It's the driving force behind our favorite things, delicious food, satisfying clicks, and that sweet, sweet YouTube autoplay. You see, our brains are wired to seek out pleasure and reward. And when we engage in activities we enjoy, like watching a funny cat video or, eating, our brains release dopamine. It's a beautiful, vicious cycle. Now imagine combining two dopamine-inducing activities. Consuming tasty food and consuming equally tasty content. It's like a double shot of happiness espresso for your brain. It's addicting. Habit formation, or how I learned to stop worrying and love the algorithm. Let's be clear, habit formation isn't inherently a bad thing. It's how we learn to brush our teeth, tie our shoes, and navigate the world without constantly second-guessing ourselves. But when it comes to our relationship with technology, particularly during mealtimes, it's worth examining how these habits are formed and the potential consequences. Because here's the thing, the algorithms know us. They know we're suckers for a good recommended for you list. And so, they keep us hooked. They feed us an endless stream of content tailored to our every whim and desire, ensuring that we never have to face the horror of a meal without digital accompaniment. It's a brilliant business model, really. But it's also a slippery slope. Because the more we rely on these digital distractions, the less likely we are to engage in other, potentially more fulfilling, activities. All right, let's face it, sometimes eating can be a bit, dull. Especially when you're flying solo, there's a certain starkness to a silent kitchen, a certain weight to the ticking of the clock as you shovel food into your face. It's enough to make anyone reach for their phone, desperately seeking a distraction from the existential dread of their own chewing. And that's where YouTube swoops in, like a digital knight in shining armor, to rescue us from the clutches of mealtime monotony. Learning how to make sourdough bread, that we'll inevitably fail at, or watching a compilation of dogs failing spectacularly at being dogs. Believe it or not, the desire to inject a little entertainment into our meals isn't a new phenomenon. Long before the internet graced us with its presence, our ancestors were finding ways to spice up their dining experiences. Remember the radio? That magical box that brought music, news, and soap operas into our homes? Well, it also became a staple of the dinner table. Families would gather around, sharing a meal and a collective listening experience. It was the original form of multitasking, albeit a slightly less screen-heavy one. Then came television, and with it a whole new level of mealtime entertainment. Now, before you accuse me of launching into a full-blown Gwyneth Paltrow-esque wellness tirade, bear with me. mindful eating. It sounds like something you'd hear whispered in a yoga studio between sun salutations and kombucha breaks. This isn't about incense and chanting. At its core, mindful eating is simply about paying attention. It's about savoring each bite, noticing the flavors, the textures, the aromas, basically experiencing your food with all your senses engaged. But here's the thing about mindful eating. It's really hard to achieve when you're simultaneously navigating the digital abyss that is YouTube. It's like trying to have a deep conversation at a rave. Possible, but highly unlikely. Our brains are actually pretty terrible at focusing on multiple things at once. We might think we're expertly switching between watching a video and savoring our food, but in reality, we're just shortchanging both experiences. Let's talk about portion control, shall we? Or more accurately, the lack thereof when YouTube enters the equation. Because here's the thing, when we're glued to our screens, we tend to eat more, and faster, and with less awareness of what we're actually putting into our mouths. It's a phenomenon backed by science, folks. Studies have shown that people who eat while watching television or scrolling through their phones consume significantly more calories than those who dine distraction-free. And it's not just because they're mindlessly munching during commercial breaks. Even when the content is engaging, our brains are so busy processing the visual and auditory stimuli that they fail to register feelings of fullness. Here's a fascinating contradiction for you. We watch YouTube while eating to combat loneliness, yet we often do it while surrounded by other people. It's the ultimate paradox of the digital age. We crave connection, but we also crave the freedom to disappear down our own personalized rabbit holes of content. Think about it. You're physically present but mentally checked out, each of you lost in a world that only exists within the confines of your screen. It's like we're all in on a collective secret, a shared understanding that it's perfectly acceptable to disengage from the real world, even when surrounded by people we supposedly enjoy spending time with. Eating with YouTube isn't just a Western thing, it's a global trend with fascinating cultural variations. In South Korea, mukbang, or eating broadcast, is a cultural phenomenon. Watching people consume massive quantities of food on camera is strangely captivating. In Japan, kita or eating oneself bankrupt, shows their love for food. They indulge in culinary delights while watching TV or scrolling through social media. Food blogs, Instagram influencers, and cooking shows are everywhere. From Bangkok to Paris, people share recipes and turn mealtime into a digital experience. Food and technology are intertwined globally, creating digital dining rituals. It's a global feast for the eyes and stomachs, and it shows no signs of slowing down. Studies have shown that families who prioritize screen-free mealtimes report stronger relationships, improved communication, and even healthier eating habits. It turns out that when we're not distracted by our devices, we're more likely to pay attention to our food, savor our meals, and engage in meaningful conversations with the people around us. So, the next time you sit down for a family dinner, consider instituting a digital detox. Put those phones away, silence the notifications, and rediscover the lost art of conversation. You might be surprised at what you've been missing.